Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is John Giordano from the Center for Economic Growth staff. Thank you for attending our webinar series today. We have a special one today for you, and just one housekeeping note. On the bottom of your toolbar, there'll be a Q&A button. If you have a question for Rich during his presentation, just type it in there and we'll make sure that he sees it. I am pleased to introduce Shepherd Communications and Security to you. They are the region's security provider of choice, utilizing the latest technologies, product lines, and equipment in our professional installations. They specialize in providing their customers with fire, intrusion detection, surveillance, and access control systems. They offer remote access capabilities where you, the customer, are able to monitor your systems from anywhere, anytime. They also offer the thermal technology for keeping your business safe during this pandemic and in the future. So, ladies and gentlemen, may I present to you their managing partner, Rich Ruzzo.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, John. I appreciate you providing that great introduction, Andrea, for setting up the webinar and giving us the platform to put out this, what we're calling a public service message. We've been in the security integrations business for almost 15 years now. And when the pandemic hit us in early March, we put our advanced technology group into determining what was being used around the world to help flatten the curve and what technology could we adapt and adopt so that our customers, both current and new, had solutions moving forward. What we found is that a host of manufacturers and surveillance camera providers came to the table with, the fever cam, the COVID cure, the whatever. And we very quickly sifted through kind of that snake oil approach and found the 5 or 6 manufacturers that we felt strongly not only could we support and capture and manage supply chain, but that we could stand behind and deploy some of this off-the-shelf technology that frankly is a rather mature technology and has been in use for a number of years around the world, is relatively new to the US market. So I'm going to get started with a little bit of Solutions 101, just a little bit of information that probably some of the folks that are on the line may already know, but I feel that as a security integrator, our job is just as much about educating our customers and our potential customers and the community as it is to do the implementation, sell a product or sell a service, or support our customers long term. We're very much about the community focus, and we recognize that in our role as technology providers, we play a unique role in which we can identify what technology may help and may support our business community coming back to life. And in the end, that's really what we're all doing here, right? We all share that same need to turn our businesses back on. I'm grateful that we're up here in upstate New York. We're in phase 2 and moving quickly with what doesn't appear to be an extensive amount of caseload. But moving forward, what do we do so that we can become resilient and restore confidence within our workforce, confidence within our customer base, confidence with our supplier and vendor chain? What do we need to do as business owners to restore that confidence and create the resiliency so that in the future, when something like this occurs, and make no mistake, I feel strongly after the research, and again, I'm sure that most of you have done this research as business owners, but this isn't the first time this has happened in the world, and it probably won't be the last. It certainly is the first time in the United States that we've had to take such drastic measures. And I think that if we were to experience that kind of disruptor again, both economically and to our community in terms of confidence and capacity and productivity, I fear that the outcome may be significantly worse. And I recognize that while we're not quite out of the woods right now, we feel like we're on the right path. Now is the time to employ, deploy, and embrace technology that can help us in the future. So what I wanted to do is go over some of that technology, some of what we see as the new normal, tools, techniques, employing EDT in the premises, some of the form factors that we now have here in our solutions lab that we're happy to bring to or have folks come and visit us during demo days, or bring equipment to your location for custom implementation, and having that dialogue on what equipment needs to look like at your premise to fit your premise needs. And that really drives, having a professional integrator like Shepherd Communication and Security to help you to map out that solution. So just a little bit about who, what, where, why. Who's Shepherd Communication? We've been doing this since 2007, as I said earlier. We've got a great team of customer care and project engineers and account managers. And we've got 3 branches, one here in Albany, one in the Utica or Central New York market, and then one out in Canastota serving the Syracuse market. My partner and I came out of the RPI program a number of years ago. I'm proud of that education and that alumni support. And over the last 13 or 14 years now, we've grown our company from what was really just a small cabling and installation services support company to well over 30 employees and a deep understanding of electronic security, surveillance, and structured wiring and network cabling technologies. We've got a fairly significant client base, including New York State. We're a voice telecom region 3 and 4 services provider. SUNY Polytechnic, we're very proud of that customer relationship. The Gillespie Group, Rush Gaming, most of the large developers in the area. And so we're proud of our achievements over the years. We've got 150 plus customers that rely on us for smart thinking, smart integration, and dedicated commitment to their business, their core business. We're in most industry verticals, whether that's commercial or industrial, lots of distribution, manufacturing, hospitality. We do mixed use and specialty retail. We have a residential division as well. Our business is mostly on the commercial side, but we certainly are able to support our customer base on the residential when referred in. And I spoke about the advanced technology group and the fact that they're constantly looking, what's the next product? What do we need to certify on? What do we need to have in our toolbox to help our customers to be resilient, whether it's in legacy, fire alarm, life safety, perimeter, surveillance camera, access control, or it's in some of these advancing technologies. We recently announced a partnership with a company called SelectDNA for forensic marking technology, and then the enhanced body and or thermal camera solutions are just one more add to that advanced technology toolbox in which we can help our customers be resilient and support their businesses. I spoke earlier about the experience of what this looks like, this experience of pandemics. And while we all probably know some of those virus disease names on that list, SARS, avian, Ebola, Zika, none of them really came across, traveled across 2 oceans and impacted us like the coronavirus of 2020. And it's significant in the fact that that's just one in a long list going back to 2004. And as a result of whether it's response, readiness, capability, I'm not here to make a political statement. I'm here to say what we experienced was we had to shut down our economy. We had to shelter in place. Some of us, us included, were deemed critical infrastructure. I'm sure some of you on the line as well. But it's a significant impactor to try to do business in an environment where 90% of your customer base or 90% of the population around you is sheltered in place, and that just doesn't seem like a workable solution moving forward. Every one of us has had to have submitted now and or preparing the New York Forward Safety Plan. and you need to execute those safety measures that you stipulated in that plan to safely open and ensure the safety of all that you serve, whether that's your customers or if you have an employee-only population. That was part of the commitment of restoring and reestablishing business continuity. And so the question really becomes, how do we deploy safety measures that go beyond this? I'm going to wash my hands every time I do something, touch something, sneeze, whatever. How do I employ either technology or techniques that we'll get to in a second that goes beyond that wearing of the mask? We are a very resilient population, right, the human condition, but an invisible threat is significant. And the biggest impactor that we see is that impact to confidence. How do we help our customers to restore confidence, to restore everyone around me is probably okay because we've done the PPE, we're donning the PPE, we're washing our hands, and we probably were checked in at the front door or at the premise opening with some sort of temperature and or thermal detection device. And so in this new normal, as I said, what do we do? How do we restore that confidence? And how do we march forward from a community perspective so that we're doing our part? Again, sheltering in place just seems to me to be it was a measure of last resort. It's what we needed to do. I don't think we will successfully navigate that type of approach again in the future. So again, the new normals, right? PPE, face shield, sanitizer, putting up plexiglass partitions between the queue farm or at the retail facing customer counter or at the check-in counter. So these are, the ways in which we've adapted. But long term, we're going to need some additional capabilities, some additional tools. Social distancing and directional arrows, while they are a significant adaptation again, or a technique that we're using, we're, as human beings, we need to be socially together, not socially apart. And I think that in the long-term perspective of things, doing business while distanced constantly is going to create operational challenges that go well beyond the fulfillment of an order or the fulfillment of an activity or completion of an activity, rather. So, working from home. Some of us are able to embrace that. Some of us are able to adopt maybe a portion of our workforce working from home. Some of us are not, though. It's not a workable model from a production or a facilities management or where manufacturing has a significant amount of human input and the requirement for an individual to work the line or work the product or work the delivery and supply chain portions of our businesses. So working from home while worked initially, I don't believe is going to be the long-term approach that we can all change our business model to work around and be successful. Where is the guidance coming from? We've got OSHA overseeing, some of that. What are you doing now to create I speak to it at the bottom here, that general duty clause, right? That general duty of care clause that we all sign up for as business owners. CDC telling us, 5 different things, and every time you think you've adopted something, it changes just a little bit. And so, a lot of operational wobble for all of us. And so what can we do to embrace technology that can help stabilize some of that wobble, right? You've got the National Institute of Health, the World Health Organization, all of these folks saying and or indicating something. But in the end, it comes down to how do we operate our business? How do we sell our product? How do we safely care for our employees and present effectively to our customers? And it comes down to that next bullet, which is personal accountability and human nature, right? We all have to take personal accountability for our activities, whether they be in the workplace, in the home, or out in the community. And personal accountability requires us to have a confidence and a normalization and an expectation that the technology that maybe our employers are deploying, or municipalities or our places of higher education are helping to defend, protect, or at least create some envelope that we all can feel comfortable that I don't have to stay 6 or 8 or 10 feet away from someone. I don't need to wear a mask for the rest of, coming to work or being in a public place. I don't need to create some of these distancing options that I think inevitably will create a much larger impact to our productivity and into our organizational culture. So I talk about that general duty clause, and I just identify just a little bit here. Under the OSHA law, the general duty clause indicates that employers are required to provide workplaces free from recognized hazards that are likely to cause death and serious physical harm. We do that today. We know that we need to put guards in place for certain equipment, or we need to identify lockout, tagout, or we need to create a confinement placards. We're not going to put our employees in harm's way. Yet this viral load that once again, collapsed us in 3 months' time from a screaming, lowest unemployment in a significant number of years to 45 million people looking for work or out of work rather, and a substantial impact to productivity across the globe. We know that is not the norm. And so moving forward, what are we going to do to help defend and or tamp that curve down, as that phrasing has been used so many times, right? So any infectious outbreak, we have a shared responsibility to prevent that spread. If a company fails to do that, the bigger impactor to me, I think, is that illness, right? Folks, this isn't just about pandemic. This isn't about coronavirus. This is really moving forward. I think that our experience share as employees, as employers, as a workforce, I think we're going to be reluctant to come into the workplace where, so-and-so is sick at the front desk, or, the person, that sits next to me in the cube is coughing a lot. I think before it was, that's a real team player, and that's a person that's, really putting in that extra effort, and, hey, Chuck, go home early today, right? Now, as an employer, as an owner, as a business leader, I don't want Chuck in my office now. There's a significant amount of impact to not only probably the morale of the company, but the productivity of the company if others get sick. But now I may have liability through this general duty clause. And that liability is significant, and make no mistake, in the near future, I think that you're going to see your first litigation of whether or not someone took the necessary actions to protect and defend and employ that general duty clause. And technology can be one of the ways that we adapt and adopt and help support or defend, rather, I should say, that litigation exposure. I referenced the fact that $530 billion is lost a year in productivity under typical circumstances, obviously significantly more when we've all had to shut down our businesses. Not here to define whether or not sick leave and how do we adopt to sick leave, but there's a lot of legislation on the books right now within the state of New York that will probably help the employee, certainly, with sick time. And being able to evaluate when sick time needs to be used really depends on not only following that legislation, but having the employer have the right policy and protocol and procedure in place. And one of the ways that we put the right policy, protocol, and procedure in place is having technology that can help trigger whether or not a procedure needs to be initiated. Secondary screening, you've come in, you've got a high temperature. Temperature, as we'll get to in a minute, is highly correlated to illness. It doesn't mean that you've got this virus. It doesn't mean you've got some disease. But what we do know, and I'm not a medical technician or clinician rather, but anything over about 100.4 is the recognized threshold. It says if the human body is over 100.4 degrees, you are probably fighting some kind of illness or infection. Ergo, you are sick. Therefore, we need to now put you into a secondary screening process. And that secondary screening process could be, answering these 4 or 5 questions about exposures, about other illnesses, taking an additional temperature of the individual at the door, at the premise opening, and determining whether or not maybe today might be a work from home day, or maybe today is a personal time off day. Maybe it doesn't hit their bank, maybe it does. Those are decisions that at the business owner level we all need to make. But having folks just come in and then, kind of being in the break room and it's clear that somebody is sick, I think is going to have a much larger impact on our workforce, on our morale, and on our exposure to potential litigation. I hate going back there, but that's real. In the future, it will no longer be looked at as, that's a guy that really takes one for the team, or that's a gal that really goes the extra mile. It's going to be, that person shouldn't have been here, and now maybe others have a problem with that. So when we talk about tools, techniques, and technology, I call out some of our strategic partners that have represented and presented in this webinar series. Tim Harris from Janitronic last week did a great job talking about all the services that they provide, whether it's that employee PPE, welcome back kit for personal sanitation at the desk, or their kind of more invasive or more wide-reaching disinfectant services. I thought that was really impactful. Or we've got our friends from Crisafulli Brothers who, with their red carpet ventilation and HVAC services, right? People are worried about what's in the HVAC system. These are steps and actions and tools that we can utilize as business owners to say to our employees and to our customers and to our community at large, here's the steps that we're taking, here's the actions that we're taking to create a safe workplace. What are some of those techniques, right? We've got all this newly minted knowledge on how to put those and manage policies that we need to put in place to keep our employee work zone safe and free from infectious disease, right? We've got cleaning audits we need to do. The state has said you've got to have a PPE supplier. You've got to find that supplier. You've got to identify when you've cleaned a surface, and you've got to identify that you've taken and or documented everyone's temperature at the premise opening. So got another slide. I've actually picked up a quote from the governor's office on Saturday. WCBS reported that Governor Cuomo indicated that he was now empowering, enabling, and frankly, by way of that phrasing, strongly recommending that folks now take the temperature of their employees who are coming in through the door. So leveraging technology to help offset efforts necessary to meet those state safety audit mandates and enhancing the ability for businesses to maintain records to mitigate liability and meet compliance is really significant now. Not only is it something that we're kind of looking at going, well, it might be easier. I'm just going to have somebody measure someone's temperature at the door. It may be almost a requirement now where we've got the ability to look back on an audit trail, which technology can help us do, on an audit trail that shows Rich Ruzzo came to the door, he was 98.6, it was at 12:42, in the afternoon on June 8th. And now if we have to report that maybe to governmental agency or contact trace in the future, or anyone who says, show me that you protected this premise, you've got the ability to do that. I think strongly that at some point, if we have written audit logs, that may become problematic. Not necessarily, but I think we've all experienced where something can't be archived and or captured in a digital form, it could be called into question. So technology can help us with that ability to support contact tracing, and in those wider community efforts, heaven forbid, as I said, I believe this is not the last time that we're going to experience something like this. And I think it's incumbent upon us to take the necessary steps now to help with how do we create resiliency, restore that confidence, or maintain confidence in the future, and support the wider community effort, which is we all need to do our part. So we're starting our economy using thermal camera technology, right, to the meat of what we wanted to talk about today, which is what do we need to do? What kind of technology are we talking about, and where is it best fitted in? And this technology can be deployed, right? These are thermal cameras. This is a mature capability, right? We've had look down, forward-looking infrared cameras in the military for a number of years. The camera form factor and the capabilities with artificial intelligence and the ability to detect whether or not someone has a mask on or whether that's an actual face versus a cup of coffee. These are enhancements that have come in the last 10 or 12 years and now are really able to be implemented effectively in the premise, whether it's an office building, a manufacturing facility, a production facility, a food processing plant, without a significant amount of equipment and without a significant amount of capital expenditure. Make no mistake, there's some dollars and cents involved here, right? Especially when we've got to, take the implementation, take it out of the box, not just putting it up on the wall. There's calibration, there's certification, there's the ability to integrate it into existing building management systems. But this technology is not so newfangled that it's way up on it's on the bleeding edge, right? It might work, it might not. This is mature, capable technology. And this technology is looking for individuals that have enhanced body temperature, right? It's looking at the forehead, and there's an artery inside the inner eye that the cameras look at that best correlates our core body temperature within about a half a degree of accuracy. Knowing if someone, like I said, is over that threshold of 100.4 can provide an early warning, can provide the impetus for secondary screening, which can dramatically reduce and dramatically slow the viral exposure and or quick spreading pathogens within a given premise. And that's EBT 101 and, collapsing the curve 101 in terms of what we need to do as responsible business owners. I just spoke to earlier that I said on Saturday, WCBS quoted Governor Cuomo's office, who said New York City, while preparing to reopen for phase one, that he was now signing an additional executive order allowing, mark that word, commercial buildings to take temperature check on anyone, underscore that word, who enters their premise, right? And he went on to say that we're giving commercial buildings the right to have the temperature of everyone who walks into a building. It's not just your health, it's people that you could infect. So it really speaks to where the state is expecting, I believe, in my heart of hearts, and being a business owner for 15 years now, and some of you have been doing it a lot longer than I have, but we all recognize this kind of language, right? 6 or 8 months from now, make no mistake, somebody is going to have authority, someone's going to have enforcement, and someone is going to come in and say, you're not doing X, therefore, here's the impact of not doing X, whether that's fining or change in process or, heaven forbid, red flagging the business. So using thermal detection systems, we believe strongly, again, taking equipment off the shelf and integrating it specifically into our customers' premises, that we can help those customers be discreet, efficient, and effective in identifying individuals who need secondary screening. And that's really what this is about. These devices, they are not medical devices. They're not intended to diagnose or treat or define that someone has a disease or some underlying medical condition. We're indicating that as individuals with enhanced body temperature, which again is highly correlated to illness or sickness, this is a tool that we can use to effectively say, hold on, let's go through a secondary scanning procedure. Let's go through a secondary protocol. Let's identify whether or not someone might need to take the day, paid or unpaid. That's a decision that you guys need to make within your own policies and protocols and procedures, but need to take a day and go to a medical professional. And this is how we can manage the impact to our healthcare system. What's it look like? So essentially, in a very generic fashion, it is a thermal optic with a reference module that's reporting up to a recording device. And between those three items, we are taking the picture of the individual at the premise opening, we are recording it, and then we're alerting management, facilities, HR, someone that either A, we're all good, probably don't need to we don't need to report that per se in an email, but if someone breaks that threshold, we're able to output to an email or a text message the fact that someone is at the door, it's this person, right? We can capture the image, the cameras have dual lenses, so you can see it's me, and you see my thermal image, and then it indicates that Rich has an elevated body temperature, triggering some action. So it gives us a visual alert, it gives us an email output to secondary screening, and it also gives us the ability to have an actionable output, right? All the equipment that we have vetted in our solutions lab has the ability to have what we call an alarm relay or an alarm out, which means that with proper integration with a company like Shepherd or whoever it is that you use, we certainly want you to, we want to support that activity. But as I said initially, this is a public service announcement as much as it is about us presenting solutions and options. But with the proper integration, you can input the alarm output to your access control system, if you have one at the building now, and not allow that individual's credential to work when they've exceeded that threshold. Now you've effectively managed the premise. You've enhanced the perimeter, you've secured the perimeter, and you've said, hold on, we're going to go into a secondary protocol without worrying about whether or not we need to, heaven forbid, in a food processing plant, empty the building, potentially, remove product and or, go through some deep cleaning that could significantly set you back in both operational cost and productivity. And who knows, maybe market share at that point. So the ability to have that actionable output, we believe, is a key driver here on why we want technology implemented versus the audit at the front door with someone holding a thermometer, even if it's a no-touch standoff, and then signing someone in. Auditable management, augment that personal accountability, right? If your employee population knows that we are employing technology at the door that checks our temperature when we walk in, you're not only saying to the individual, hey, don't come to work if you're sick, let's all work together here, but you're also saying, I'm doing everything possible to make sure that when you do come to work, we've created a safe environment. So it's a personal accountability both from an employee and an employer perspective, which we believe directly correlates and drives productivity and morale. And then it also drives confidence. And as I said at the beginning of our presentation, confidence is the key for us. Confidence in the workforce and the customer, in those supplier-vendor relations. Having the confidence to go, what my employer is doing or those folks around me that I'm working side by side every day, I think everyone's okay. One of the questions I'm sure that will come up will be about asymptomatic. We can't solve for what we can't see, but we certainly can solve for what we know that does exist, and that's enhanced body temperature. Some of the form factors, again, a lot of the meat and potatoes here. What's it look like? These aren't big, Border Patrol cameras or some of those, forward-looking infrared balls that you've seen on the front of Apache helicopters, right? They've got the equipment down, it's miniaturized, and it's highly capable, and it's got high-speed capacity so that you can read 3, 4, 5 people a second coming through, say, an event center, right? That lower left-hand gate, we're all used to walking through a metal detector, and that can read multiple people coming through there as a constant flow of traffic. More traditional, that upper left-hand corner where you've got either the wrist or the forehead detection on a kiosk or on a kiosk stand or on a wall. That's what we're seeing a lot of. That's what a lot of our customers are saying. Hey, this is what I need. I don't have 5 people a second coming through my doorway. We've had some conversations with some of the transportation authorities in the area, some of the event centers, and they're looking at how to have high speed. But for the majority of us, we need the ability to have something at that weather vestibule, if you will, or at that front door, right, or just inside of it with some, kind of placarding and identification, which we provide all of that as part of our solution. The ability to halt and detect and indicate whether or not an overtime threshold has been surpassed. So some of what it looks like. Again, these are dual lens cameras. The camera is looking at your thermal signature, which is what that imagery looks like. The camera uses facial awareness of artificial intelligence, and it uses thermal object false alarm set aside algorithms to know whether or not it's you and your face, and therefore your core temperature or your body and skin temperature, or a cup of coffee, because everyone, brings their Starbucks in the morning, and we don't want a bunch of false alarms that will then turn into the exact opposite of what we want, which is a vote of no confidence, because the system seems to always false alarm, even though people are on the secondary screening, well within temperature guidelines. Some of what it's looking at, right? This is a good example of the kind of that, I'm looking at the face, the cup of coffee I don't care about. I'm looking at the face. Doesn't matter if you have a medical mask on. Some of the equipment solutions that we can provide can give if you want masks to be worn in your building because you want to continue to drive that protocol, then it will look at not only the temperature, but it will look to see whether or not you have a mask on. And if you don't, it will alert and say, you're not authenticating until you put that mask on. So a lot of different options that with built-in artificial intelligence, we're able to accommodate and integrate and implement on behalf of our customers. Where it doesn't work is in the outdoors. We can't set up these cameras or the metal detector style gate in the middle of a parking lot or at a guard station, right, and have people kind of, pull up in their car and give a quick peer in, and it doesn't work that way. It needs some ambient temperature stability, so it has the ability to compare and be able to look at, again, that reference module and be able to identify, I'm looking for a certain temperature signature, and if it's got the sun beating down on it, or if it's got a lot of reflective surfaces around it, the cameras, that's where they start to have challenges with implementation, or that's how their accuracy, don't get me wrong, they'll read the temperature, they just won't have a very good accuracy, and the variability will be significant. So it's definitely not the way we want to implement. It's about a 2-minute video, a little bit on how the solution works. This is from one of the Asian manufacturers. It'll just give you a sense of what it's looking for. Runs, like I said, about a minute and change. I'll go through this quickly. Non-contact. Not a lot of people come into their office in a big line, but the idea here is to show you that the high-performance cameras are able to read multiple people constantly walking into its field of view. All the manufacturers have now converted so that their firmware is upgraded so that if you can't do Celsius conversions in your head, it's able to read in Fahrenheit. So again, just kind of showing that the camera has the ability, auto sequence. The queue is lumpy, if you will, and it can see everyone. And if someone was over temped, would alert. The output would alert, whether that's an HR person or a facilities manager or a production supervisor. Some of the, if you're wearing the mask, it's looking in that interocular. We did a presentation to a financial institution the other day. I said, if somebody walks in your branch looking like that, you have a different problem. I'm sure many people wear helmets. This is what happens if you don't have artificial intelligence.
My hot drink is going to set off the alarm.
This is what we don't want. We don't want the equipment to constantly false alarm. So the equipment and the manufacturers that we've now vetted and pulled into our supply chain, they could care less if that cup is 150 degrees. They're only looking at the human face, nose, and 2 eye orbs, basically, is what it's looking for. That's why those targets are doing what they're doing. So a little more of the same. I'm going to click out of here. So the technology is mature, as I said. It's been tested and in place going back to 2010, 2012. The SARS outbreak really impacted the Asian market. And so overseas, in other markets, this is a technology that is commonplace. Folks check into office buildings with a thermal sensor and or a thermal check-in on a regular basis. They've got significant capacity. Shanghai, in this particular case, the Shanghai Metro is one of the busiest rail centers in the world. And Dahua deploys, in this particular case, Dahua is the manufacturer here, has deployed high-speed thermal cameras, and they can read everybody coming through that platform and or that transition deck. So where do we see this equipment being installed, and where can it be impactful? And the answer is just about everywhere, whether it's a place of worship, or it's an event center, or a gaming, schools. We've had tremendous amount of interaction with the SUNY system on what are they going to do in the fall? How are they going to protect their campus buildings, and what technologies can they employ? And so we're having a lot of discussion with them on what does it need to look like, whether it's hospitality or the entrance to one of your buildings or a transportation hub. The technology really applies everywhere. And why do you use someone like Shepherd as a professional integrator? And the reason is that you want this type of technology to be implemented in your premise correctly. You want the doorway and or the access control and or the email outputs. You don't want a box of parts to be shipped into your facilities team and say, here, put this up and let's see how it works. You want to be able to turnkey the solution from day one. You want to get the lift in terms of you've employed a technology with the sole responsibility of that duty of care clause, with the sole responsibility of saying to your employees and to your customers and to your supply vendors, we're doing what it takes to keep our premise safe. Now do your part too from that personal accountability. So Shepherd can help each and every one of you and all of our customers to implement technology properly in a manner that is cost effective and in a manner that we do full training, we calibrate the equipment, and then we're there for the after installation support. And that's really where we add value. Our boots on the ground, this is our core business, so you can focus on your core business. So we'll do that training, we'll do that calibration, we'll do, of course, the inspection and warranty of all the equipment. We can go from a temporary install, right, where you want to kind of test out the equipment, put it on tripods, if you will, and then we move to a permanent wall-mounted or a vestibule-mounted or a reception area-mounted solution. And so those are full turnkey solutions. If necessary, in the case of some of our event center customers, they've asked us, can we come and man the equipment, on the night of? And so we're working through those solution sets with them as we speak. And then pricing of that equipment, we've got a number of different options, whether it's a direct capital spend, right? The kiosk systems are a $300, $3,500, $3,800 option, right? Depending on what options you select, whether they need to be integrated with access control, what kind of outputs that we need to do. So sub $4,000 price point in order to install, fully integrate, and fully calibrate the equipment to like the event center where they need high performance equipment. Those cameras tend to range 3 and 4 times higher than those kiosks. But we can price the equipment and or provide support, whether that's as a service or as a CapEx or as a HARS model, right? Hardware as a rental, hardware as a service. So we're very open to helping our customers. As I said at the very beginning, this is as much about my commitment to community as it is serving my business, but I have a bigger role to play. We have a bigger role to play. We all do. We need to do what it takes to make sure that in the future, if we are experiencing, and I believe that we will, if we experience something like this again, we're doing everything we can to support our customers and to support our employees and to create a safe workplace. And with that, John, I think that kind of brings us to the end. I'm happy to answer questions. I hope that was enough of a primer or a primer to help folks to ask those questions, and I'm more than happy to do that as a one-to-one or do that right now.
Rich, I did have a question here. I think you touched upon it on the cost and installation side. You had mentioned Are most options in that 4,000 range? Is that what you were saying, including installation or?
Yep, they really are. We've put a number of solutions. We've implemented a number of solutions now for our clients. If they have a weather vestibule, they have existing access control. That equipment is about $3,500. A little bit of implementation professional services, and we're able to solution that for right in that $4,000 range, if not a little bit less.
And one question came in about your confidence in the accuracy of the thermal cameras. They certainly look like it in your video, but I just wanted to get your confirmation of that.
Yeah, appreciate the question, and that's the right question to ask. Right now, handheld thermometers have a variance of between 4 and 6 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, that's significant. So if I'm reading someone in at the door and I'm using the traditional method, and maybe I'm using a standoff model, and it says 98.6, I could be 93 or I could be 103 in terms of the inaccuracy of those handheld models. The thermal cameras with a reference module are able to capture the temperature within 1/2 of 1 degree. So it not only in Fahrenheit, that is. So it not only accounts for human body variation. We don't all run 98.6, 98.7. And it also accounts for the fact that, as I said, the typical threshold in which a secondary protocol or action should be taken is at that 100.4 degree temperature barrier. So even with that 1/2 degree of variance, we're well within, and we're still accounting for and accommodating for the differences that we all kind of operate in.
Very good. I think that's the end of the questions. And you have Rich's contact information on the screen in front of you, or you can contact our CEG office to connect with him. This presentation was also recorded, so it will be up on our website if you want to share it with business associates who may be interested in this type of technology, or with your staff. It'll be there available for you to watch it again. We want to give a big thank you to Rich for your expertise on this new technology and the other work that you do. And CEG also has more informational webinars upcoming, and you can see them on the events section of our website. So Rich, can't thank you enough for today.
Thank you so much, John. Thank you, Andrea. I appreciate everyone attendance today. More than happy to help, more than happy to have the discussion. Whatever we can do to help restore and revitalize our community and our economy, we want to play our part. So thank you all for the time today.
Thank you.
Take care.